Morning glory and evening grace, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt in Studio West today. Good afternoon to you. I'm pleased to welcome for the first time as a senator, Jon Husted, to the program. He's Ohio's junior senator. Senator, welcome. It's great to have you on the program. Nice to see you again. I have not seen you since a Republican fundraiser in Columbus when John Kasich was governor. So it's been a while.
Oh, wow. That is a while. That's a while. But yeah, it's great to be with you, Hugh, and a lot of stuff to talk about.
I want to find out primarily, since you've been a senator for 2 months or less, actually, I'd like to kind of figure out how you like being a senator. But I first want to thank you. I want people to know you were a champion of school choice in Ohio. You worked with my buddy Aaron Baer to get the backpack bill through. You introduced it, I think, when you were first Speaker of the House, if I'm not mistaken. You're a longtime advocate of school choice. Am I right, Senator?
Yeah, we started the Ed Choice Scholarship in 2005. So we've had statewide school choice since 2005. We started out with 4,000 students, and now we're at 140,000 students who have access to a school of their choice.
Well, I know you're on banking, you're on environmental committee. I hope you have a chance to be a voice for school choice. There are not a lot of them in the Senate. It's not such a sexy issue with the Senate because it's mostly a state issue. But I hope you pursue that. What have you found to be most interesting of your time in the Senate thus far?
Well, first of all, a lot of interesting people here. Look, the Republican team that we have in Washington right now is an incredibly talented group, and it's just a real honor to serve your country in a new capacity. Look, as you said, I'm a state guy. I worked in state government. I was used to balancing budgets and getting things done really quickly, but when you're in the federal government, in the Senate, it just goes a lot slower, and so you got to be patient and persistent.
Now, you get together occasionally at a conference, and I've had the honor of a couple of times going over and being the guest speaker at that conference. It really is just 50-odd people who come together and work together very closely. Have you figured out yet who's like your go-to for guidance on a variety of the arcane Senate rules and what you're up to?
Well, the budget process, as you know, is so much different in the Senate and in Congress than it is in almost anything. So, the budget chair, Lindsey Graham, has been great to talk to and get a chance to really understand things. John Thune is obviously a great leader, but we have a lot of really talented young senators who are really concerned about the budget deficit and the future sustainability of our nation. With the spending that the Democrats were doing here was just outrageous over the past 4 years. But Republicans now have to toe the line and show that we can we're willing to have the seriousness of our mission to get the savings that we really need to put the country back on a more stable economic and financial platform.
Now, our home state usually sent pretty sensible people to the Senate. J.D. Vance, Rob Portman. I mean, people are kind of center right to right. How do you fit in the ideological spectrum of the Senate? I know you get along well with President Trump.
Yeah, absolutely. I get along with President Trump. I am an America First Republican, but I'm also pragmatic. I know that you're not going to be able to get everything all at once. You got to take the most that you can get, do your best, and then come back and fight another day. So I try to be a pragmatic conservative in trying to get as much accomplished as I can.
Now, I always have to remind you, downstate Buckeyes, because you're a Dayton Flyer. I think you live in Upper Arlington, which is kind of middle of the state. But I got to remind you, there is a Steel Valley, and Trumbull County exists, Ashtabula County exists, and they need their senator as well. I always like to put in a word for the hometown.
Well, and how the Republican Party has changed is really emblematic of what's happened in the Mahoning Valley around the Youngstown area. It's pretty fantastic how that's a place. When I started in state government, if you were a Republican, you got 35% of the vote. That was a big deal. Now Republicans get over 50% of the vote in the Steel Valley there in the Youngstown area, and they are a critical part of our Republican coalition in the state of Ohio.
Now, people do not know that Trumbull County has been the most significant change over 12 years from D to R of any county in the United States. It used to be second behind a county in Iowa, but in 2024 it became even redder than that county. So it went from being deep blue Union Democrat to being deep red Trump Republican. It's kind of remarkable. I would never have predicted it in my life. So, Senator, what about these committees that you're on? What are your objectives to get done on the committees?
Well, one of them is health, education, labor, and pensions. I will tell you that that's a place where I can have an impact on school choice, which you mentioned earlier. But I will tell you on the help committee, we talk about inflation, we talk about eggs and gas and bread and milk and things like that. But the number one inflationary driver in the American economy in the 21st century has been healthcare. It's way outpaced any other sector of the economy, including higher education, in terms of inflationary costs, which is both what your employer pays for your health care, what comes out of your pocket as your share of it, co-pays, all of those things, what we pay as taxpayers into Medicare and Medicaid. Those are the huge drivers of inflation and our budget problems. And so I really hope to lean in on those issues a lot. I mean, let's face it, I don't know why, like on programs, for example, SNAP, which is a program to help poor people buy food, that we pay for the very things that make them obese and unhealthy. There's no reason that the federal government should do that anymore. We shouldn't pay for sugary drinks that then help people become obese, and then we end up paying on the other end with Medicare and Medicaid costs. So those are the things. Just, you don't have to cut. You have to be smart. You have to get better value for what we're doing. We have to do a better job at that if we're going to put America, I was just with Robert Kennedy just a few minutes ago. If we're going to make America healthy again, if we're going to put ourselves on a sound fiscal track, then we've got to be smarter about how we spend our money, and driving down costs in healthcare is one of the primary things that we need to do.
You are also leaning in on artificial intelligence. I was kind of surprised to learn that because it's not something I normally associated with state level people. Why AI? Why are you interested in AI?
So we talk about regulatory reform, right? Well, in 5 years ago, when I was lieutenant governor, I started a process to use artificial intelligence to review our entire regulatory code in the state of Ohio. The regulatory code in Ohio is 17 million words. We are 17 million words, and we eliminated 5 million of them. So almost a third of the regulatory code in the state of Ohio, we had eliminated using artificial intelligence tools. For example, I think we hit around 1 million words in the building code that we were able to eliminate. And that makes it easier. Time is money, right? We want to make it easier for people to be able to comply. We identified everything that required you to show up in person, use a paper form, do all of those things that were arcane and outdated, changed all those, saved state government and the people of Ohio hundreds of thousands and millions of hours, literally, in compliance costs by doing this. And it was all using an AI tool. So with that experience, which we've done in Ohio, I want to take that to the federal government. So I've started this initiative, legislation, to use an AI tool to do the same thing to the federal registry. If you want to know what federal regulations are, if the federal regulations were in a book, it would be 34 feet tall. That's how big the federal code is. And it would take you if you worked 8 hours a day, it would take you over 3 years to actually read it. So I want to do the same thing to the federal code, real regulatory reform. We would identify all of the outdated, duplicative, arcane regulations, bring those back to the agencies, have them review them to make sure that they're on board with eliminating them, and then ask the Congress to go through and make it official. And using AI gives us the ability to do something that no one human being or a team of human beings could do before. Because you know what I told you, what we did in Ohio? We did that with one person and an AI tool. That's how we
I think that's an amazing idea. The guy you tell that to, I think you'll have jurisdiction over the Department of Interior, won't you? Because you're on environment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, when Doug Burgum comes up to testify to you, I think he may be the smartest guy, the equal of anybody in the cabinet. And you suggest that to him, and he'll take AI and apply it to the DOI regs, and they'll shrink by 4/5. Those are the worst regulations in the world. They're a bunch of species that aren't endangered. That's going to happen. Senator, I want to close with the most important thing here. Two things. You'll be lobbied a lot. Have you already been lobbied?
When you're a public official, that's the nature of the world. Whether
Okay,
it's
well, I'm
by
going to lobby you
citizens or
right now.
corporations.
Although I didn't get
All
paid,
right.
I don't get paid to lobby. I'm a believer in AM radio, and I'm going to come and see you about the AM Radio in Every Vehicle Act. It almost passed. Ted Cruz is the sponsor, along with Ed Markey, if you can believe it. Those two people, Ed Markey and Ted
Wow.
Cruz, are both behind the AM Radio in Every Vehicle Act. So I'll come see you about that. But then I'm going to lobby you about the Browns versus the Bengals, because I think the Browns should get as much public money for their stadium as anyone else in the country. You got a position on that yet?
I was working on that issue before I left, but now I'm in the federal government. We don't play a role in that. We'll let them work that out at the state and local level.
Okay, well, if you get a chance to put a thumb on the scale, we want a dome stadium in Cleveland. Thank you, Senator Jon Husted. You said good to see you. Keep coming back, Senator Husted. I'm Hugh Hewitt. I'll be right back, America.